Muscle Man's all in the throat.
Not a problem. That's exactly what
Oh, of course. I'm Pops. I'm Benson. Hello. Nice to meet all of you. And I'm Muscle Man. Hey, how's it going?
Pete, how was your work on Futurama?
It was good. It was my first job. I was 19, and I did character layout, which is sort of pose the characters out in the scene, and then they time it out and send it to Korea to be in between. But it was amazing. A really great learning experience, and super proud to work on that show. I worked mostly on the second and third season. Looking back, though, it was just a great show.
Would you say there's anything from the past kind of influences your work on Uncle Grandpa?
Everything. Really. I mean, I know that's like... Yeah, what's that?
Anything special though?
The Bible.
Yeah.
I'll report that. Sure.
I don't know. The Far Side, Gary Larson, Mad Magazine, old Looney Tunes cartoons, yeah, Max Fleischer, Tex Avery, all that stuff.
I was going to ask you, it is such a weird, far out show, but it's very Mad Magazine friendly. As it feels like, just put everything out there and scope for weird.
It's awesome. It's super freeing. It's like, I can't believe they let me do it, to be honest. Half the time.
You have to tell that story.
Which was? Oh, yeah. Speaking of Mad Magazine, at the WonderCon in Anaheim, Sergio Ogones from Mad Magazine was there, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta just say hi to him, and no one was moving. He was at a booth, and no one was coming up, so I went over and I talked to him, and he recognized my name off the badge, or just like, he was like, hi, what is that name? And I told him about the show. He's like, he saw the show, and he's like, you're crazy. He's like, something's going on up there with you, you know, and that was like the greatest compliment anyone could ever get. Like, this is like someone that, when I was like 8, I would like, you know, stare at his drawings in Mad Magazine for hours and try to copy them in my notebooks and stuff. It was like, he knew something I made. It was amazing. It was really like cooler than meeting, you know, I don't know, Bruce Springsteen or something, you know. It's like, for me, it's like,
Do you feel like you have certain limitations to just how sort of out there you go with what it is that you create?
The only thing we try to stay consistent is character archetypes. We try to make the characters consistent, so if they do weird stuff, it's how would they react to it specifically. So, but no, not really any limitations. The limitations is our mind. It's like, okay, what do we do next type of thing. And it's challenging, you know, when you do a TV show, you can do so many episodes. It's always like, you do a really good board or storyboard or episode, and you're like, all right, that was a good one. Let's do it again. Let's be funny again. Let's be funny again, and then again, in a different way, and again, and again, and again. So it's challenging. So we just we have little writer retreats. We get together and we try. We do writing games.
Eric, how was your work in Batman Arkham City?
Oh man, I'm rarely asked to do like action video games, because come on. But I guess that's the best part about being a voiceover artist, that you can kind of just throw yourself into different situations. And the same people that usually voice direct regular shows, but not regular shows, I know you guys was it Chris Zimmerman, right? She's another woman that does a lot of video games. Colette Sunderman brought me on to do Batman, and I played an Asian doctor on that, because, come on. Yeah. But it was great. There will be hardcore fans of that stuff that were like, yeah, I was playing that game, and you're that Asian doctor that was kidnapped by the Riddler. Cool, okay, I'll see you later. In the restroom 5 minutes ago. Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, I'm super happy to be called into work.
I have a question for yourself. Like being 3 like major voices on the radio show, what's it like when you're recording an episode, and like if you go back and watch it and see like what a big like amount of the episode you are, like what does that feel like? Someone's like a one-man show.
Yeah, well, at the first time, it just made me laugh to like hear my voice coming out of the cartoon. Even in school when JD would just show me like the animatics. He would show me first because he was really secretive. But he was like, "Oh, Sam already worked on it, so I'll show him the piece." And then I would just be sitting in the computer lab, like laughing. No one would know when I'm laughing. No, yeah, I think I just did it together.
It's pretty funny watching it. I haven't seen it that often, but he talks. You go back and forth without thinking, I think.
Yeah, do you do that? Do you do like runs? Or do you actually switch characters?
We do at least the first time. I'm sure sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So
He's the Mel Blanc of that show. You know? Literally, all the characters.
So when you record shows, do you individually, or do you go from like character to character? Like you'll be having a conversation with yourself.
yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that once, and then we'll just pick up one time later. Or sometimes even I'll just read from one character through the scene, and then someone else will read just so I can focus on the character.
Paula, what should we expect this year? The regular show, more craziness?
Yeah, there's been a few episodes that really killed me and my art team, just because it's really fun to work really hard for JJ. He works really hard himself, and they throw these episodes at us, and I'm like, so many characters, so many wild things happening. Of course, a lot of stuff is destroyed, but there's going to be a lot of that love triangle. Mordecai, Margaret, and Bobby J. There's some big stuff happening in Muscleman. Yeah, some really big special characters. We've got some half-hour specials. It's amazing.
Paula, could you talk a bit about the approach to the art style on the show?
Yeah, you know, JJ, as Sam said, he likes to keep things to himself. He's pretty secretive with his work, but he and I had worked together on Camp Laszlo and Flapjack. So he came to me and said, I don't know how to do the art, can you help me? And that was it. We just worked together from there. He had some artists that influenced him. He had a very specific look in mind. It's called Regular Show for a reason. He wanted those backgrounds to seem like everyone's life, everyone's home. Like, my job as the art director is to make sure that those backgrounds and all the artwork support the animation and the writing, and just help tell the story, plus it out. And then I've got to make sure that we can actually produce the show, like in an 11-minute episode every week. So I think it all worked out. I was actually kind of worried during the pilot stage that the backgrounds and the artwork might look a little boring, but he kept reminding me it's called Regular Show for a reason. And then when we actually screened all those Cartoon Institute shorts, you remember that, the first few that came on, I was like, God, I can't look at anything, I can't concentrate. But when Regular Show started, that theme music started, and I'm so happy, and I'm glad that people like the look of this show. It's fun to work on.
I have a question. What was it like when you pitched an idea like Uncle Grandpa?
It was pretty terrifying. They asked me, Craig McCracken at the time actually asked me, he saw, I pitched something to him a long time ago before he asked me, and it was like an incarnation of Uncle Grandpa. He came to my cubicle and was like, you should try to pitch this for the shorts program. And I was like, okay, you listen. Like, that's it. I look up to. And so I went back and I tried to think of an idea. I kept postponing my pitch. Like, you can't postpone it again. You have to do it. So I just sat down and from beginning to end did it. Storyboarded it out. The reason there's a photo of a tiger is because I can't draw tigers. And then it just I was just like, I'll fix it later, for the pitch to get the idea across. And then everyone loved it. I was like, yeah, I did that on purpose. It's just funny how things that because where you're under the gun or something and you get something done. It's just like a happy accident, kind of the Bob Ross used to say. And then I went in there, and I didn't know. I showed it to my girlfriend, wife now, girlfriend at the time, and I was like, she was like, this is really great. It is? Okay, good, because I gotta get in my car and speed to the studio. I was working at home, and I went in there, pitched it, and it went over really good. And they told me that day that, like, you're gonna make it. So, not the series, but the pilot at that time. And it was amazing. It's like, and for a kid who just grew up loving cartoons and wanting to do this and finding out that it was an actual job that you could do, maybe have a career, to have a show now, it's surreal.
Who do you get the pizza Steve by yet?
You know, I really want to know. I had another show. This is no one's ever asked me this, but this is a good story. So I had another show and it didn't go well, and I was, a little bummed out. I'm like, all right, this is, and I was a little confused at the time what to do next, and I was like, you know what? I have a buddy of mine. I was in the office. I had a dry erase board in my office. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a pizza with sunglasses. It's like, who cannot like a pizza with sunglasses? It's so iconic. So I'm like, wait, no one's really done this before. It's like kind of like a weird mascot for a food chain or something. I wanted that. I always loved how cheesy like those type of mascots from the 80s, 1970s, all from through a time. And I did it, and I called them Stew Slice first. I don't know why. And then I went to Pizza Joe, and then we couldn't do Pizza Joe because of legal concerns or whatever. So yeah, exactly. It's a restaurant. It's Casey Alexander, who's the creative director on the show. It's like, Steve's kind of a jerk. We knew the character was like a jerk, a maniac kind of jerk. He's like, Steve. I hope no one's named Steve. He's like, kind of has a jerky sound. Pizza Steve, because it doesn't really go right. And I was like, he named him it. So it was literally like just being like, I'm gonna sell this dumb idea. And they're like, actually, you know what? This could actually work. Like, and Uncle Grandpa's this weirdo, old magical man who lives in the thing. It's like, of course he's gonna have a friend that's a dinosaur or a piece of pizza. It's like kind of a Pee-wee's Playhouse thing. So it all kind of worked together. It's another one of those accidents, It's just like you don't know where inspiration will come from. You just have to like be yourself, do stuff, and something hit you.
And if people laugh at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. It's as pure as that.
So what's it like coming up with ideas for that show? Like, what goes into that? Do you have to write down when you come up with episodes?
A lot of different types of episodes. We do ones that are very we're helping a kid episode where Grandpa's a kid, and we kind of have a structure to how those are things. And we go like we try to do kind of Seinfeld-esque ones where it's like they'll go to the movies. How would these characters go to the movies? And you write to their character. You know what I mean? Like how would Uncle Grandpa get popcorn? He would get like a person who get weird or something. Like you try to figure it out that way and write from there. And we'd have brainstorming.
Like how? Because
it's
with
a
the
monster.
Yeah,
it's pretty big. I mean, it's there's no good place to shoot this show, so everything is you kind of have to make it built. 2 ships for the first season, a third for the second.
Bigger than the first.
Yeah, it's a pretty big production, but it's I mean, I think at the beginning with Stars, it was about I think their commitment to make the show was to make the show, to make an uncompromised version of it and a vision of it that felt big and real, and I think in order to do that, you kind of can't cut corners. It's a story about people that live very big lives.
So it's based in the Bahamas. Did you shoot there or?
No, we shot. Everything is shot in Cape Town, South Africa.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's almost entirely shot in on a studio lot. So we are a very visual effects dependent show.
So we combine sets on stages, sets outdoors. The town is an actual set with an actual beach. Water washes up with the sand, and then the ships are all on the compound as well, sitting on a hard deck. And we shoot them with green screens.
One's in the tank, in a water tank, and then the 2 of them are on solid ground.
So it's a massive scale. When you drive down the freeway to the studio, you can see the pirate ships from the freeway. It's very cool.
I'm a huge pirate buff.
Nice.
I did a lot of research for him, and one of the things I like about the show is there actually is a pretty good attention to historical detail. How much research have you put into it, and like how do you keep doing your research and ensuring you're kind of staying true to those kind of myths?
A lot. I mean, I think we wanted to understand. We wanted to understand sort of what the historical record was about these people, but then I think beyond that, we wanted to understand the historical context of these people and the things they dealt with, and the problems they had. To really sort of get under the hood of it. I think our commitment to it is to the truth of it, less than the details of the historical record. So we will play with timelines, and we'll play with what is somewhat settled history about people in order to tell the right story about what their experience was like and what that world must have felt like. I think that's kind of the trick.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, it may not have actually happened, but we like to feel like it could have happened. And that's all part of trying to pull piracy out of fantasy back into something that feels real.
Yeah.
The show debuted on YouTube first, and then it went to Stars. How did that transition happen?
I'm sorry, it debuted where?
YouTube.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, they released the first episode.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry. No, it was. I think at the beginning it was just about trying to get people exposed to it and to introduce people to what I think Stars felt, what we felt was this kind of great big world that they wanted to make sure as many people saw as possible.
All right.
You guys covered a lot of ground in the first season, a lot of ground. As you put the whole thing together, how far ahead do you guys know where things are going, or do you have an end point and just going to work your way toward that? I mean, how does it work from that end for you guys?
I mean, a lot of it is the book. We're slightly bound by the source material, but I think in terms of where we see the show itself going, pretty good sense. I mean, I think it's a process of setting mile markers and then stepping back and then constantly sort of checking where you're going. But I think we have a pretty good sense of where it's going in terms of how it interacts with history, the history specifically of Nassau and what happened there. I think that's always both a guide and a challenge. I think to try to figure out how to fit that history into this fiction of these two very big characters that did not exist in that history in full and sober. How do you integrate them?
Where do you get the inspiration for the backstory on your characters?
In some cases it's we pull from history. In some cases it kind of arises organically out of the relationship that's on screen.
A lot of it they're composites of people's stories, things that existed in the record that we found interesting and just tried to put a face to it. Some of the time, I mean, it's always about trying to find the emotional
to the core of the character.
Yeah, exactly, and of the story, and finding ways to make sure that there are faces that can express the right.
In the upcoming season, are there any historical pirates that are going to be showing up, or any other historical figures that may be popping up that you can tell us about?
We're introducing a guy named Ned Lowe early in the second season, who's a real guy, and from what we know on the historical record, was among the more sort of violent, dangerous, borderline psychopathic. I mean, he had sort of a reputation for torture and enjoying torture. So, our version is, along those lines. He's a guy who employs violence in a way that he feels is sort of truthful and unblemished, and, but in comparison to everyone else, he comes off slightly demented.
It's, I think the hope, as both in this season and going forward, is it's such a big world, and so many faces of characters people have been hearing stories about for 300 years. I think for us it's we're constantly looking for ways to pull people out of that toy chest.
How many people did it take to build those ships?
Well, I think at any given point there's 300-400 people in the construction yard that are just building. So for season 1 that was the town and ships. For season 2 that was more ships.
Oh boy!
Just kind of trying to build more pieces of the Caribbean
in London.
And London, yeah. Sort of seeing what it's a story about people who are outside civilization and can't fully understand it until you understand what civilization is. So we wanted to be able to see London and understand what they were running away from, what they were outside of. So that was a significant build as well.
Right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So did you like the rain coming here?
Feeling like home, to be honest. It's not cold, at least. That's the main thing.
Exactly.
What can you tell us about the upcoming season? Just tell us everything. It's fine.
Yeah, all the spoilers. Well, the upcoming season kind of gets a lot grittier and darker, and as the structure of the political structure of the island starts to kind of fall apart because alliances are no longer firm, and pirates are constantly having to change alliances. Everyone becomes a lot more selfish and Machiavellian in their approach to survival. And yeah, I think it's for me the season has got a lot more hand to mouth. Like everyone is having to really buy the seat of their pants basically to survive. So
yeah, I think there's a sense where Nassau is threatened by Britain. It's vulnerable. Eventually they're going to come. They're going to sort out this problem of piracy in that region. It's affecting trade, and so it's about the future of Nassau and how to solve the future of Nassau, how to make it a place that is still a viable place where all these pirates can live. And I think Flint's thing is I need to create a place where they can give up piracy and make this a going concern, but without having Britain take it over again.
yeah.
And so it's really about the survival about Nassau, and also it explains there's a backstory to Flint. So you go back in time 15 years to when he was a young naval officer, and you get the origin of his what's driving him. You sort of feel at the end of season 1, which is great. You don't know what he's about really. He's very enigmatic. It explains a lot of the reasons why he's doing what he's doing.
Now, obviously, you're in a historical setting and you're playing these characters they're fictional, but they're pulled from the historical record. How much research did you do for your roles, as looking into the history of just the history and how people lived back then?
To be honest with you, I didn't do a huge amount of research. I kind of rely on. I read one book on piracy. It was more about West Indies piracy. It was about shore trade and how it was affected by piracy. And it went into a lot of stuff about just the day-to-day kind of living on these ships, where a lot of the crews came from. The fact that most of them were kind of people who worked with the press gang onto either naval ships or onto trading ships and being treated poorly, and eventually when they got their freedom on a pirate ship, they imposed this democratic rule, these codes that they lived by, and that it wasn't the sort of chaotic existence that kind of comes across in the more sort of fantasy side of piracy. They weren't as ragtag, they were quite organised. And that was, so I looked at that, but really, at the end of the day, I got to play what's in the script, and they make the world for me. I inhabit the character, and it's good to know background, but I don't think it's too useful to get bogged down.
Yeah. I think for me, it was a tough thing to do anyway, because trying to research women in piracy is actually really hard. There's not a huge amount written about it, so you really do have to take the context of the world that's presented to you, try and understand that world.
and try and understand how a woman in her position would fit into it and the things that she would have had to do in order to survive. So, you know, for me, I found it really interesting. I tried to find women that I could kind of like find a similarity with, but most of the accounts would have been women who were in London, who were running caverns, who were running the same kind of racket, who were running the same kind of selling illicit goods. And, you know, you think, well, actually, the island itself is kind of has to keep running when the pirates are off kind of looking for their prizes, and so it's kind of like a war situation. So women kept everything going, kept the business running, and so in that way I can kind of fit her into that. But you know, she is completely what you'd not expect of a woman of the day. So for me, that's exciting and fun to bring an aspect of history that must have existed to the forefront.
So what attracted both of you to these roles and to the show?
I think what attracted me was, well, I think Flint is a really, he's a great character, and he was seemed to be, you know, there seem to be all of these things that are driving him. We don't quite understand. You know, I found him very intriguing. I find his storyline very intriguing. I think that's very satisfying about season 2 is that unpeeling of the onion, trying to find out actually what he is, and it goes in a direction you really not expecting, and he keeps on making an audience question. I like that, and it was just unlike any pirate thing that I ever read. It seemed to me more like a western than a pirate show. It was much more like a gritty western, where these guys are frontiersmen and they're at the edge of the known world, really kind of existing, and it's kind of desperate. Everything's desperate. It's not easy. I'd always sort of seen pirate stuff as just guys going around burying treasure or digging up treasure. You know, it seemed to be like, but that's how they existed. I mean, you know, whereas this is much more about pragmatic. What drove piracy? Why did it happen? And how did it actually work? What's the mechanism, the economic mechanism by which it actually survived? Which is really kind of her end of the thing, of being the fence. You know, she had to have a fence. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, I think for me it was that as well, that it was kind of the politics behind it, that it was kind of a political drama, and it takes in a very large geographical. I mean, this is the beginning of kind of globalization. Like we're really talking about the first free trade in the world, and people who are trying to sabotage these trade routes. So for me it was really exciting in that respect, but also like just on a character level, she's really kick-ass, and I like playing a rebel is something that's, you know, every female actress is, you know, dying to do. So, you know, not playing someone who is subservient to anyone else and really is creating her own path and making sure that everybody follows her on it. So, you know, that's, for me, that was the most exciting thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Doing awesome.
Schmitz, come on, coming in.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
I'm sorry we're not cool enough. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry.
I'm very sad.
No worries.
So your character had one hell of a first year.
Yeah.
Talk about where he ended up, and a little bit about, you know, where you think things are going. Whatever you can talk about, where things begin here at the movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, where we end in season 1, Charles has come back and you know, asserted some sort of physical dominance over the town a bit, and he's, you know, up at the fort with the Damon, and you know, at the beginning of season 2, you'll see he's up there, and you get to see that. But you know, I think what's interesting about season 2 is I think none of these guys are kind of stagnant guys, and they don't sit in the same place. They're just not those kind of guys.
You get a sense in season 1 that you are not happy to be landlocked.
Yeah.
You know, that he feels like he should be at sea, and taking over the brothel is not impressive to him at all.
Yeah. And I came back with these boats, but I still don't have a ship. You know, so he doesn't have a ship, so it's, you know, I mean, Charles Vane still has a long way to go to actually be a real pirate again. You know, he's got a fort. What does that make him? You know, is that a pirate?
Like that scene right near the end of the first season where you're in the fort but still looking out at sea. You know, not content yet.
In reality, that's the way. I mean, he's he's a guy that belongs in the sea. That's where he lives. But in season 1, you haven't really seen him on the sea yet. So there's still a lot to reveal, I think, for all the characters.
Was anybody else selected to cast for Charles Vane?
Yes, actually, I think originally Luke Arnold, who plays John Silver, was cast as Vane or Silver, and they weren't really sure what he was going to play. And then
enter Zach McGowan.
Yeah, and I was one of the last guys who came on board, and so it was funny, but what's great is we've all watched each other's audition tapes and stuff.
How much research did you do on piracy previous to coming onto the show?
I did none. Oh, that's so untrue. His room was full of books that I hadn't seen. As much as we could. I suppose you have your little bit of knowledge about pirates from whatever, a bit of Pirates of the Caribbean or what you know at school or Peter Pan. And then as soon as we were cast, we all started swapping texts and going, you should read this, did you know this? And that doesn't stop. We still keep sharing information about pirates. Did you know this happened? Or this guy, Luke's pretty full bottle. He's a font on it, so I can just go to him and say, what do you know about this?
Yeah, and what's also great too is that obviously John Steinberg and Robert have done so much research, and there's a couple of historians that are involved with the show, so there's no shortage of kind of means to get information. But I think research-wise, in reality, though, I think most of us found that stuff fascinating. But as far as playing the characters, a lot of it just came from the normal work that actors do. Really just trying to make sense of the real people that these guys were. Especially, I think us, because we get to play true historical pirates. I think we always kind of take moments on set where we're like, remember that these people were, that these are real people who existed, who handled these kind of situations, and kind of what that must really be like, being in these situations. So,
and three-dimensional, as brutal as the world is, human contact and intimacy and friendship, it's still real things. I imagine the harder a world gets, in fact, the more you need to be able to trust someone or just to have a cuddle sometimes. They're real things.
Now, you have done voice acting on a few good video games such as Tom Clancy's and Iron Man. Have you been signed up for any more?
I have taken a break from doing some video game work because I have been unavailable in South Africa and Ireland. And I've recently been back to LA and have almost signed up to a couple. I have not done. I'm looking to. I love doing video game work, and I'm looking for a good one. But I haven't had that much time. I've also recently had some children, so they take up some time as well. So it's really fun. I love doing video games. I was a kid. I grew up playing video games. So.
What's the last system you had?
Last system I have is the Xbox.
Sure.
But by the way, I've gotten given the Xbox. The Xbox One is the thing, but I just haven't gotten it set up yet. But it's in the
Oh, good. We'll be setting that up when we get back to the
They sent it to me. I didn't even have to pay for it. It's fantastic.
So Zach, you went from playing a sex addict on Shameless to a pirate. Is the contrast what brought you to this role?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously when I was people met me as Jody in American television. I'd done a bunch of guest star work before then, but that was where people started kind of wanting to take photographs or caring at all. When we were kind of winding down on that, when this kind of came across my email screen from my agents, I was like, this is the one that we have to get. We have to get this one.
You really chased it.
Yeah, they weren't going to really read Americans on these parts. They weren't really reading Americans. They didn't want any Americans to read. So I was like, just not tell them I'm English. I was like, I don't care what you do. Get me in that room. So they couldn't get me in the room. So I let down a tape and sent it to my agents, who loved the tape right away and were able to get it in the hands of the producers quickly. And in 6 minutes, I was basically had the part. I literally sent it and went and was like getting a glass of water, and I got this email back 2 minutes later, and then they were like, listen, they want you to come in and read tomorrow, and producers, and I was like, I'm in Chicago because I was shooting I was basically shooting the last episode of Shameless that I did in Chicago. And by the time I was doing my last day, I had Saturday and Sunday off, and then I started my myself on Monday. So, yeah, it was
seamless.
It was cool. It was cool. You know, I mean, definitely from going from being a non-working on camera actor to being working on this, definitely.
You were also in Dracula Untold.
Yeah.
What was it like to play as the Dracula?
Well, playing a nomadic Transylvanian, there's a word that you don't use to describe that kind of person.
A traveler.
A traveler. Nomadic traveler. It was really fun to work on all of these productions that are big. It's a new thing for me. But it's funny. You do like $100 million movie, and you're like, wow, this is so big. But then you realize also how big the show is because our sets and whatnot. I mean, I've still in all the biggest movies I've ever seen, I've never seen anything like the size of what we're doing in Black House. Although Dracula was really cool. I think as an actor, I've always been a character actor. I've always done different characters. I've never been that one kind of guy just doing one thing. And to continue to get to move from very different people and very different kind of attributes, it's great. Clearly, my hair helped with all that too. So.
All right.
One day I'm gonna shave it off, and you guys will be like, "He's a cop." That's right.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Scary looking little machine.
Yeah.
Slowly
moving.
It's a taser.
It
Pretending
does
to
look
be a
like a
microphone.
taser.
Yeah.
It's a soul stealer.
So what can we expect in season 2 from your characters?
For me, it's for Silver. It's really about him getting drawn into this world. Season 1, he's just looking for the way out, and then slowly, he starts to realize the potential of what is offered by this world, and also who he could be in this world, and realizing it's someone that he could never be anywhere else. And the most fun part is seeing properly the relationship between Flint and Silverfield. This kind of love-hate relationship, tolerance-hate relationship. I think that they have to work together, they have to deal with each other, and I think that kind of double act is really fun.
I think Max is sort of recovered. She's past that point of recovery of what's kind of happened to her, the awful things that have happened to her, and she knows, it's she's such a strong person that she's, choosing to stay on the island, and she has incredibly big plans and big goals and a big vision. She's going to take. She wants to kind of take it all back in her own way, without giving too much away. She's just an incredibly determined young woman, and it's really, really special. But she's also such a snake in the grass, I think, and you have to be really careful with her. And I don't know if anyone is really, except for your character's always careful enough with her,
Yeah, I think it recognizes a like mind.
There's a similarity there where you're like, okay, this bitch can really mess me over.
Yeah, I'm not turning my back on you.
Exactly, and I kind of team up with this sort of a Bonnie and Rack. A lot of time I spent with Bonnie and Rackham, just figuring out exactly how to take over in a big way, the three of us.
What are some of your favorite moments of the show as far as you're acting on it?
I just had some amazing time shooting with Clara Paget, who plays Bonnie on the show in season 2. Like, just really beautiful stuff where I found myself for the first time as an actor, like, really sitting in and kind of forgetting who I was and just being so incredibly in the moment. Just a lot of really tender, kind of interesting, really complicated sort of storyline there. I just so thoroughly enjoyed working with her doing that.
Yeah, it is. I think we are given such great opportunity to use our craft on this show. The faith the writers have in the cast to write the scenes they do, which can be like a 5 or 7 page two-hander. I mean, it's just 2 actors in a room, and when you get to do that with someone like Toby Stephens or anyone else in this cast, but you just get to go toe to toe with a great actor and really like flesh those characters out and see how they bounce off each other. It's the best reason to go to work every day.
I think we all equally feel like Stevens is like, he's the actor on the show that you just want to watch all the, behind the scenes, just because he's, everyone is so incredible on the show, but he definitely has this thing about him that's just epic talent.
Okay, after your explanation of Max, I kind of feel bad asking, but how similar are you to your character personality?
No, we get that question all the time.
Yeah.
She's so much smarter than I am. She really is. She's just like the coolest, conniving. I feel a similar strength that she has that I also have, I would say. But other than that, tremendously. I had like an awesome childhood, and she didn't, and is a whore. So what do I say?
I really don't know with Silver. At some points I'd like to, there are certain elements of the character that I'd like to say, that I'd like to be like, but a lot of it especially in season 1, he's a bit of a little shit. He's kind of annoying. But unfortunately, I'm probably more like him than I'd like to admit. That's it.
How amazing was shooting in South Africa?
It's incredible. The set for this show continues to amaze all of us, especially as it gets just bigger and bigger. We have a new, because we had 2 ships for season 1, and we have a new one for season 2 that is bigger than the others. And there's a few other sets that come into play that I can't really talk about because it reveals later on. But the scope of the whole show gets bigger. And I think South Africa is the only place in the world we could have done this, where we had the space, the weather, the infrastructure to make and the locations to make a show of this scope. It's just been fantastic.
It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful city as well, which is, we're really, really lucky, the days that we have off, because we're such a big cast, we do get periods of time where it's like, well, I guess I'll go to the stunning beach today, or the food there is just incredible. It's not a tough place to shoot. I think it's hard being there for 7 months and being away from home for that long, but in terms of beauty, it's really,
do you want to go to the Penguin Beach today, or the wineries?
Do you want to go horseback riding in the hills? It's just silly.
Yeah.
It's silly.
Tough life.
It's rough. We have a rough sometimes. It's really hard.
Sorry, go ahead.
So when you first started shooting and you were actually on the ship, was it difficult to get, or are you used to being on boats?
Well, we're never actually on the water. If we were, we'd only be able to shoot 1 episode a year, really, because it's just you have no control. So we have water tanks and a bit of green screen. We have our own beach. So, but that said, because it's on a gimbal, so it's rocking, and you still have to deal with the sails and the rigging and all that's real. It still feels like you've been out at sea for a day. You still sometimes go to bed and the room's still rocking, and it's easier than if you're on the water to get on and off the ship. But still, once you're on there, you're really out in the sun, on the deck of a ship all day. So it still feels like you've had a day being a pirate. Still a lot of sand, sun, and marching up and down and climbing ropes and all that.
Something that I'm tremendously jealous of. Everybody wants to be a pirate, and I know it's such hard and horrible work sometimes with the water cannons and the wind and everything, but it's man, that's a cool gig you guys got being on this.
No, it is fantastic, and some days you go, this is the best thing ever. But then there were some other characters who hadn't yet really got to be on the ships, and then in season 2 they're like, finally I get to be on the ship. And after the first day they're just like, this is terrible. I never want to do that again. It's like, it looks great, but it is real work. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Pretty well. I haven't taught English for a while. That's what happens to me in interviews. I suddenly feel like I'm speaking my second language.
Which is?
Armenian.
Armenian?
Armenian.
Armenian.
No, I don't know what it is.
What can you tell us about the upcoming season?
Well, it's... we've got a new showrunner in John Schleiben.
of Breaking Bad and X-Files and other fantastic shows, and he's kind of really grounded the show this year. It's very characterful, and it's still epic, but it's not kind of, you know, there's no big adventures off to the New World or Far East or anything like that. We're very much in Florence. We're contained, having to deal with our consequences.
So with that, I guess piggybacking off that, season 1, you all were kind of together as a group. Season 2, everyone kind of had their own thing spread out. So season 3, you all come back together, kind of working and interacting.
Yes, people come. Sorry, yeah. I'm like, yes. People come back together. Yeah, people come back together in season 3 for sure. And I think the fans who missed people not being together in season 2 will feel definitely they'll feel more satisfied this year because and also like you and I had quite a lot to do together this year, which was amazing. The Christian Zone came together, and I think you'll also see
in such a different way to we did in season 2, which was in extraordinary circumstances. This is a lot of people kind of hit rock bottom as a reaction to Leo's actions, and it's the kind of repercussions of that throughout the characters and the relationships. I'm learning to stop talking after I answer, because otherwise I will just talk about an hour about absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
notice that?
No, it's what we both do.
Yeah.
We fill the gaps.
Yeah,
and then,
we waffle on.
And then we panic.
How did you react to the season finale of the second season?
Second season.
I know, it's so funny when we're
trying
going
to
back
rack my brain. Yes.
Going back to second season feels so strange for us because we're so in the belly of season 3 now that our life is the stories that we're creating in the third season.
We pick up season 3 at that pivotal moment at the end of season 2. So kind of episode 1 and 2 of season 3 are essentially a 2-part war film. So episode 1 is a kind of continuation of that finale. Before we really go off into these new directions.
Right.
Have you done any research of Da Vinci in that time period for your character?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely researched him before I started the show because I thought Leonardo da Vinci, he painted the Mona Lisa, and then suddenly you just discover, you just discover that he's done so much, and he was an artist and a war engineer and an anatomist and all these different things that you didn't realise, which is really fascinating. And I can't remember the question.
my character is based on we're tapping out.
We did do a lot of research, but yeah, your character is
my character is based on a guy called Tommaso Messina, who is actually a real life figure who was a very, very close and long-term friend of Leonardo. And he was actually the first guy to go into Leonardo's glider that you see Nico do in season 1. It was actually Sarasta who broke his leg. So I knew a little bit from sort of David back then.
And Lucretia existed. She was a real character. She was there. And then she kind of just. Then her life just stopped, and we didn't know where her life took her after a year or so. So then the creators just ran with it and developed the character, and she's who she is today.
You were in Guardians of the Galaxy, were you?
Yes.
What was it like being with Batista in there? Like, what was he like in person?
Awesome. Yeah. Were you a big fan?
Yes, I am.
It's an amazing film to be part of. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. James Gunn's such an awesome director. And even though he was making this humongous film, he was so good at honing in on the very intimate, smaller moments of that film, which I think in hindsight were vital to tell that story about his relationship with his mum and what that meant to him, because it meant that you had a real pathos all the way through the film and you really connected to that story because you'd seen him with her. So I thought it was a good telling.
Alright.
They were all amazing.
So season 2 or season 1 as well, like it's really steamy. So can we expect more romance in season 3?
might find some romance. It's pretty steamless, season 3. Isn't it?
It's a little bit steamless, but it's definitely not.
It's not as saucy, perhaps, as certainly season 1 was.
There's some stuff.
Oh, there is actually. I'm actually talking absolute nonsense, as ever. But you know, I think what I'm trying to say is season 3 is. It feels like the characters and the show has kind of matured a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah,
so it's not steamy for steamy's sake.
No,
it's
there's reasons behind it.
It's earned romance and relationships. Sorry.
No.
I mean, we're still shooting. I can try and make it a little bit.
I mean, that's pressure off you. That means like you don't have to diet as much. Work out.
In a scene where it's completely inappropriate to be steamy.
I'm going to be entirely
You
nude.
just
I'll be nude from now on.
Yeah, because that's steamy.
It's awfully steamy.